Here are some new books in our nonfiction area. These would be good for, I think, second grade and up. And I'm going to show you them in some different categories. So we're going to start off with what I would call current events. So if you're curious about some stuff going on right now, these might be some good books for you. First one I have is a poetry collection, and it's called Woke, A Young Poet's Call to Justice. And this is a collection of poems about the Black Lives Matter movement and other forms of justice people will be fighting for, doing protests for. So if you're interested in what you saw, particularly this summer with some of the protests and marches, I would look into this collection. It's called Woke. Then, here we are in the middle of a pandemic. You want to know more about it, check out What is a Pandemic? So you can find out, not necessarily about this current one that we're in right now, but any of the other past ones, because there have been other ones in history, to get some more general knowledge about pandemics. And going along with that, 2 new books on vaccines, since that's also a big topic going on right now. This one, vaccines, and this one is called Should All Children Get Vaccines? That kind of goes along with the debate. You know, some people believe that children should be vaccinated when they're just little babies, and some people are against that. So that book explores that issue. And then we had a vote, and there was a lot of talk about the Electoral College, which is how we elect our president. So if you're confused about what they were talking about on the news and you want to know more about it, it's sort of a debate book. So they're going to go through the different sides of people that believe that it should stay and people that believe that it shouldn't be around anymore. Now we've got, I guess I would call these like STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. It's like about building and technology. So what would it take to build a time machine? So maybe one of you guys will read this book and figure it out. If you are into Harry Potter and he had that cloak of invisibility, you can find out what would it actually take to make one of these yourselves. So maybe some of you guys can figure it out and bring us into the future. And then some fairy tale science, like if you've read some fairy tales and you're like, oh, I want to do some experiments. It would be how to make a bridge for the gingerbread man so he doesn't fall in there with the fox or the wolf. And then how to make a windproof house for the 3 little pigs so the wolf won't come and blow it down. So if you're into engineering, building stuff, check it out. And then this doesn't quite go in the category, I wasn't sure where to put this, but wilderness survival. So if you want to learn about basic safety for doing hiking, camping, etc., you might want to check that out. Okay, we got a big section of biographies. Misty Copeland, very famous Black ballerina. A lot of people would want to learn about her. Check her out. Everybody knows Rosa Parks, right? This is Elizabeth Jennings, who actually fought for a very similar issue before Rosa Parks on New Orleans' streetcars. So this is a really interesting story about civil rights. And you sort of know, about Martin Luther King, you know about Rosa Parks. This might introduce you to some people that were in the civil rights movement that are not as famous. This is a collection of biographies, and it's called I Am Not a Label, and it's about famous people with disabilities of various kinds, and they're athletes or they're celebrities like actors, musicians, etc. And it's just a collection of essays about their disability and how they feel about it, and not necessarily wanting to be defined by it. So now I've got some politicians for you. Everyone talks about this woman, they call her AOC. So Alexandria OcasioCortez, if you want to learn more about her, our future vice president, Kamala Harris. I've got a book about her growing up and our upcoming president. This is called Joey, and it's about Joe Biden. So if you want to learn about him, check that out. Going back to disabilities, 12 athletes with disabilities. This is a beautiful book. I like this. It was called The Oldest Student, and it's about a woman who didn't know how to read until she was in her 80s or 90s. It's a beautiful story. Check that out. And then a new this is Stan Lee, who invented things like X-Men and other comics like that. So I've also bumped up our, I don't know what to call it, it's like our spooky section, or sort of unknown section, I guess you could call it. Books about the unknown. So I've got Lost Lands, that would be like Atlantis or things that have disappeared. And a new one on fairies. Cryptids. Cryptids would be like Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot, sort of legendary creatures. I got 2 of these new battle royales. So what would happen if a vampire went up against a werewolf or a dragon went up against a griffin? And then a new one on mermaids and unicorns. Almost done. All right, now just some animals, etc. Going back to sort of that battle format, I've got great white shark versus killer whale and gorillas versus leopards. This is a new book about the solar system that's told in what is called infographics. So they're different like charts. So if you like looking at data in a visual way to learn about space, you might want to check out that one. Coming to some unusual animals we didn't have books on before. Naked mole rat, aardvark, and I don't even know how to say this, oxytoles. A lot of news this summer about wildfires, so I thought you guys might want to have some new information about that. This is a good story about, good nonfiction about the water and water cycle, and it's called The Ocean in Your Bathtub. So if you want to learn all about the different water processes, check that out. Similar one about seasons, The Reason for the Seasons. This is a really cool new book about bugs. It's got a lot of great information and cool illustrations. And 2 new books. We never had any books on red pandas, so I got some. This is the last category, promise, and I think you'll like this one a lot. This is just like, I guess I would call this technology. So I've got a book on Fortnite, and then a couple of like digital jobs you might have or be interested in, vloggers and gamers and streamers, people that like sort of do that for a career. Similarly, YouTube stars. So if you want to learn about what it's like to be a YouTube star, that's a lot of books. So hopefully you will put some of these on hold in Destiny. Look on my website or my Canvas for directions on that, and you can come pick up on Mondays and Thursdays.